Hey Bookaholics, welcome back to another reading vlog. Today's vlog, we are doing another My Friends Take Over My TBR vlog. So I have done a couple of these already. I have done one where my friend Esme took over my TBR and one where my friend Terry took over my TBR. And this time we're having my friend Eilise from Mojo Pie Reads over on Instagram taking over my TBR. I am really excited for these picks. I think as and when I get to reading them, I might sort of say what Eilise has said about them. Like with all of the other ones, I am overdoing it because one of the books that Eilise recommended is the first book in a series, and because I'm a binge reader, I thought, you know what I could do. So now, instead of reading 3 books, I'm reading 5 books, and the 2 extra books that I've added on are over 500 pages because of who I am as a person. But I have got some dinky ones on here that should help speed up the process. So let's talk through the TBR. The first one that I have and that I am planning on reading, which will be the one that I hopefully start today, is Redemption in Indigo by Karen Lord. This one is a fantasy that is set in, I believe, an African inspired world in which we have a Palmer. I'm gonna have to look up pronunciation for that, who is a wonderful cook, but she's unlucky because she happened to marry someone who she now hates. She gets fed up with him and her miserable life and decides to leave. So she heads back home, and on her way, one of these immortal spirits decides to make mischief for her by giving her a magical artifact only known as the Chaos Stick. It turns out that this stick actually belongs to another immortal spirit who is now out to get her, and it's an adventure across this land. It's very, very short. It is 258 pages, and on top of that, the font is huge, like it could be read from space. So I am very excited to get to this one, and again, I should be starting this one today. The next one that I have is, I also have The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This one is, so basically the 2 people that have pitched this to me have said that because I like Jane Austen, I will like this. This will be my 4th Silvia Moreno Garcia book. Gods of Jade and Shadow, Daughter of Dr. Moreau, Mexican Gothic, Certain Dark Things. This is my 5th Silvia Moreno Garcia. This is following Nina, who is a socialite. She basically gets brought in to, I think, some kind of debut ball type thing where the beautiful ones are the debutantes socialites of society, but it turns out that she has powers and she doesn't know how to handle them, and then she meets this guy who does have powers, but there is a secret behind this man. But we'll see how that goes. I'm very excited. This was also rather short. I don't think this one hits 300 pages either. 292, so nearly 300, but again, very short, so perfect for a readathon. And the last of the standalones, well, this one's not quite a standalone. If I like it, I'll try and pick up the sequel at some point. But this is An Unkindness of Magicians by Kat Howard. Now, I have said before that I don't really like New York City as a setting, but this is a story I have actually been eyeing it for quite a while. I know that Eilise has said that it's like just a setting as opposed to it being like a huge central point. I think it's more just like big city that's easy to get lost in, like that things can go unnoticed and weird things can happen and people won't think too much of it because it's big city, which I am fine with. New York in that sense, it's more when people try and make New York super like gimmicky New York, and then I'm not fussed. This one is, you have these mages whose magic is waning, and you have this one woman whose magic should be able to like enhance everyone's magic again, but she don't want everyone's magic to be enhanced, so she wants to destroy it. Don't know anything else. Very excited. And then the last thing that I have is, of course, the series, and that's Winnowing Flame by Jen Williams. I read the Copycat series by Jen Williams and it was fun, but I have heard that this is like a whole new level, and I suspect this has the potential for new favorite territory, so I am very excited because so far with my previous series there has been like, I understand why they were recommended to me, but they didn't quite hit new favorite territory for some reason or another. So this one could be the one. It could be. We'll see. Might do a tier ranking at the end of this one like I did with my romance vlog. Let me know how you guys feel about tier rankings at the end of vlogs, like vlog series vlogs. We'll see. But we have The Ninth Rain, The Bitter Twins, and The Poison Song. The Ninth Rain is, okay, this is based on the summary of someone else's summary. So this might be wrong because I've not read it yet. But this is a world in which we have these alien races that come down and try and wipe out life on this planet. And they are normally stopped by this race of immortals known as the Eborans. And they're like a vampiric-like race who are feeding off of this tree. However, in the last raid, the tree got destroyed. So now the Eborans have become more vampiric in the sense that they are now drinking mortal blood, and that kind of garners them a bad reputation, but obviously we need to keep them alive. But such a long time happens in between these invasions that mortal beings begin to forget, so the Aborans are now waning. And when the next reign is going to happen, how will we hold back the tide? I believe we're following multiple POVs, and I am very excited to find out more about them. And I am told that this is like one of the best blends of sci-fi and fantasy, which are my two favorite genres. So here's hoping I have the time of my life. I'm gonna read some Redemption in Indigo. I'm really tired today, so I'm hoping that this will just kind of like be chill vibes. I hear it's weird, which when I'm sleepy can go either way. I can be like, huh? Or it could just become like a drugless acid trip. We'll see which way this goes, but I'm very excited. So once I have read, I guess once I get to the halfway point, because it's so short, because that'll only be around the 100-ish page mark, I will check in and let you know some thoughts. Hey vlog, just settling down now for a little bit more reading, but before doing so I thought I'd check in about what I did manage to read throughout the day today. So I am now on page 125, so I am just under the halfway point of this book, and I am having such a good time with it. I didn't expect, because I expected it to be weird and quirky, I kind of thought it would take me longer to get through, even though it's a short book. So when I'm like going through it at a speedy pace, I am surprised, I suppose. The thing for me is this book isn't that it didn't meet my expectations. It is weird and it is quirky and it does take a minute to process, but in a way that still works for me. It's kind of got an almost T. Kingfishery vibe in the setup, not in the writing at all, but in the setup of this woman traversing this place, and then these magical otherworldly creatures are messing with her in a way that I find really interesting and fun. And I think that the whimsy of it is very Teen Kingfishery. Obviously the tone of this is very different, and the authorial voice in here is really cool. Like, it's got this level of immersion, this really distinctive tone and sound to it that is just working really well for my brain. So even the bits where I'm just a bit like, okay, I'm just gonna have to roll with this for a minute, it's still working really nicely, and I'm having a really fun time with it, and it keeps making me want to read, which is exactly what I need it to be doing. Getting through it a lot quicker than I thought I would be, because I thought I would have to like take breaks in between and give it a moment. I don't really need to. It's weird and potentially confusing at times, but in a way that is like, you just need to go with it. You just need to roll with it, instead of weird, potentially confusing, you need a minute to reflect on, which is great. So I'm having a fantastic time. Before I continue, let's go through what Eilise said and see how much I agree or not. So Eilise said to me that she's recommending Redemption in Indigo by Karen Lord because it's just a weird little book that I really enjoyed, and I don't see it being spoken about very much. It's whimsical and strange, and I'm just interested to hear your thoughts on it. I mean, it's definitely got, like I said, it's got a level of whimsy to it that I think is becoming more popular now, but this was written in 2010. Random tangent. All of the time, you'll get someone who will like make a really popular, like T. Kingfisher with Nettle and Bone, like Travis Baldry with Legends and Lattes, and it'll be like, they invented the genre. They invented this new subgenre. No, they didn't. They really didn't. The thing is, right, cozy fantasy has been around for a really long time. It's just that now it's been popularized, and you can say they popularized it for sure. Travis Baldry popularized cozy fantasy. T. Kingfisher popularized this specific type of whimsical modern fairy tales. No dispute. This came out in 2010. It's been 15 years since this book came out. No one talks about it. Even now, when people are reading T. Kingfisher and they're like, oh, I wish there were more like this, no one's talking about it. So I'm with Eilise there as well. And it's an important conversation to have. Like, you have a woman of color who wrote a book 15 years ago that is just as good, at least at the moment that I'm reading it, and isn't being talked about even now when her book style is popular. Random tangent. But I am very excited to continue, so that's exactly what I'm going to do. I am getting quite tired though, so I don't know how much I'm going to read. Hopefully I'll read a load and I'll just be able to lie here in bed and read. But I suspect as soon as I get to a good place to stop where I am tired enough to fall asleep, I will just do that. So I'll probably check in the morning for final thoughts on Redemption in Indigo. Hey vlog, it's Saturday, so I figured I would check in. I have now finished Redemption in Indigo by Karen Lord. I finished this last night and I ended up having such a good time with this. I ended up staying up later than I thought I would. I thought I'd just get tired, put it down and need to pick it up in the morning. And it's not one of those, it's like, because it keeps you on the edge of your seat. It was more just, I was having such a good time that I didn't really notice that I was tired anymore. Like, it had an immersion level that kept me going as opposed to a tension level, which I actually prefer. Personally, I actually prefer being like driven on because I feel immersed in the characters and the story than just because the plot beats are so pacey that you can't really find a good place to stop. So I'm really glad that I read this. I have read it through Coolpile and it's like just scraped a 5-star, so it's got like a couple of 8s but a couple of 10s in the ratings. Here, I'll pull it up. So I've given it a 9 for characters, a 9 for atmosphere, a 10 for writing, because again that level of immersion and that really unique writing style I actually really did vibe with, a 9 for plot, an 8 for intrigue, an 8 for logic, but a 10 for enjoyment. So it's got like dead on a 9, which is like the lowest you can get with a 5-star. So that feels right to me. Like it definitely feels like 5-star material. I've already said this before, I think in a previous vlog, where there is a difference between like new favorite 5-star and then 5-star in the sense of this book did everything I needed it to do. It pulled through on so many different fronts and I really admire it, really like it, etc. And like this one falls in between the two. Like, it's not new favorite in the sense of like I'm absolutely obsessed with this and I'm going to now push it onto every single person that I've ever talked to, but at the same time, like, I do feel more than just appreciation and admiration for the craft. I also very much did enjoy this. Like, again, I got a 10 on enjoyment and I think that matters. So this is an interesting one for me because I don't normally experience that. Normally it's a 5-star because I'm like, wow, this is doing things that I really appreciate and really admire, or wow, that was a load of fun. There's so many things wrong with it, but I had so much fun that I don't care and overlook it. Or like new favorite material, everything about this was perfect. Everything about this was not perfect. Like I said, the logic sometimes got a bit wonky, but like in a way that in this world it doesn't matter at all. So there's things like that I can see its faults, so it's not perfect new favorite, but it's definitely more than just wow, I admire the craft. So I would highly recommend checking this out. I really did enjoy the character interactions in here. I think that especially once Palmer gets home, it gets interesting as well, because then we have like a whole different dynamic going on. As I said, the world building is absolutely incredible. So just so many things in here that I really did enjoy. Now I am kind of torn between picking up The Beautiful Ones or An Unkindness of Magicians. So I don't really know. I don't know if I'm feeling reading physically or if I just kind of fancy vegetating on my phone. Basically, I've said this on multiple occasions, but whenever I feel like doom scrolling on my phone, I read on my phone because I can quickly flick to an app if I fancy it. But like as soon as I feel like I'm just scrolling for the sake of scrolling, I can flip back to my Kindle app really easily and there's no palaver around it. There's no, oh, now I need to go get my book out or whatever. It's literally just a quick tap, and that works for me when my brain is a bit gooey. So I think I'm probably going to do that. I had planned it for it to be The Beautiful Ones, but I think I will read this tomorrow instead, where I can take my time with it, because even though this isn't very long, I think I checked yesterday that it's under 300 pages. Yeah, 292 pages, but unlike with Redemption in Indigo, the font in this one is really small, so I feel like in an average font this would potentially be over 300 pages, so I am probably going to take longer with each page than I anticipate. So I think, yeah, I'm going to go pick up An Unkindness of Magicians and then do The Beautiful Ones tomorrow when hopefully I am slightly less goop. An Unkindness of Magicians. What did Eilise say about An Unkindness of Magicians? It's set in New York and this has a magical competition and a dark magic system, which is my favorite part of the book. It's been a while since I've read it, but I really loved it. Technically there is a sequel, but I haven't read that yet, but this one feels like a standalone. But check trigger warnings for this one if you need them. All right, let's go look up the trigger warnings. Okay, so quite an intense one by the sound of it. My main content warning is miscarriage and child death. Child death is mentioned in there, but it is in the minor section. So I'm assuming that it's mentioned as opposed to happening on page, hopefully, but we shall see. But I am okay with those content warnings, so we're going to proceed, and I will hopefully have a decent time with it still. It sounds very interesting, and I said before that this one, it does have the New York setting, but I don't think that it's going to be in a way that's going to annoy me, hopefully. So I am excited to give this a try, and when I get to halfway, this one's the longest one, I think, out of the non-series one that I've got. It's about 400-ish pages, so it shouldn't take me too long. I'm hoping that by tonight I'll be able to get to about halfway, and I'll be able to check in this evening. Hey vlog, checking in because I am now 50% of the way into An Unkindness of Magicians. I am having a really interesting time with this one. I wasn't expecting the level of almost amorality of every single character. I kind of thought that there would be a more balanced, some characters are good, some characters are bad, but we're dealing genuinely with a discussion around systemic issues and like taking down corrupt systems, and the way that having a system in place, especially if you are an elitist system, having it in place for prolonged periods of time, it will erode, it will corrupt. Even the principles on which it was based were already bad, and it's just gotten worse as time goes on. And how to tackle a system that is not benefiting anyone, and yet the people who are in power are the ones that are perpetrating it. Like, how do you dismantle that? And it's quite interesting as a theme within a like magical tournament vibe as well. So it's got a lot of YA dystopia brought forth in an adult sphere with adult conversations and adult nuance, and also it being urban fantasy instead of dystopia, so almost more approachable, because a lot of the systems that we see in place now that are corrupt are in place now. It's not, we don't need some world-changing horrific event for us to get to the point where the world's gone to shit. Like, things go to shit all the time, and I am really appreciating that in this book, that it's like, you know, dismantling some of the concepts in this world. I don't think I like any of the characters. I don't really think I'm supposed to. I'm very interested and I enjoy the social dynamics between characters. We have, what, the name's Madison, and our protagonist Sydney, and what's the other one's name? Harper? We've got 3 girls, and I really enjoyed their interpersonal dynamics. They're not corrupt like the rest, but they're still messed up people, and they're fascinating to kind of follow and I suppose see how they help each other in this society. I'm really liking the discussions around the way that privilege functions in here. I'm enjoying that. I don't think that this one is going to maybe have the time to tackle things in exactly the way that I want. So I am hoping that if I read this one and this is going to end in like a big cataclysm, that the sequel deals with the fallout of that. That's kind of my hope, because I don't think this is going to have time to do both. And I'd rather it do one thing well and then the sequel do the other thing well. So we'll see. But I'm definitely going to be picking up the sequel based on how much I'm enjoying this one. So that's always a good sign. The way the magic system works in here is very curious, because you have, it's a hard magic system in the sense that there are a finite amount of things that you can do. There are repercussions and consequences for what you do, but they're less obvious than you normally get in fantasy. It's not like you use this much magic, you get drained, and more the reason you have this magic is built on suffering from others, which is interesting, because it's very much like a takedown of capitalism. The reason you have this much wealth is because of the exploitation of people who have less. The reason you have this much magic is because of the suffering endured by others. And I think that it's an interesting parallel to have and a very good conversation to be having. So I really do appreciate that. And again, like the conversation around dismantling that system and who it benefits, and the people in power being the ones that are benefiting from it. There are some like horrifying moments in here that I wasn't expecting. So like there's a moment there where there's this girl who like a tree grows out of her, but she's still alive because the tree is feeding off of her, and like her being alive keeps the tree alive, and they're keeping each other alive, and it's keeping her in suffering and things like that. There are lots of things like that. There's, you know, trapping people in the illusions of their nightmares and all these things, because it's a tournament, so you're supposed to be like harming other people, and the way they go about it isn't just film, here's a magic bullet. It's more like, here's some prolonged suffering for you. And I wasn't expecting that. I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting that. So I am enjoying this book, which sounds weird after what I just said. I appreciate that. But it's well constructed and it's well written. And like I said, I really like the way we're playing with the amorality of these characters, because I think it feeds really well into both the plot and the society that's being presented. And the fact that sometimes you need people that aren't saints. You don't need saints to dismantle systems. You need angry people. You need people who are done with these systems to be the ones to take it apart, and I think that's being portrayed really well in the book. So hopefully the latter half continues to excite me, and like I said, I'd really like for this dismantling to be handled well, providing the sequel then focuses on the aftershock of that. So we'll see how I fare with the latter half. A good time so far. Thank you, Eilise. Hey vlog, you are an awkward angle, but it's all I've got, and this needs to be a really quick update. So I have now finished An Unkindness of Magicians, and it did end in, like, not the way I expected, but like with the thematic conclusion that I expected. So it's gotten like a really, really high 4-star. It's like 1 point away from a 5-star, and that is, I think, possibly subject to change based on how I feel about the sequel, which I don't normally do, but it depends on if the sequel tackles the things that I wanted the ending of this to tackle, if that makes sense. So we'll see, and I will pick that up soon. I have bought it, and I will definitely be picking it up soon. And yeah, I don't have a huge amount more thoughts, because obviously the latter half being spoilers, but I think that the conversations that were being had were really well handled, and like the way that the morality of these characters plays out is also really interesting. The setting didn't bother me, which is something that potentially could have, and the different characters not being necessarily likable people but interesting people worked really well for this setup, because I think if we had any one character who was like super moral angelic level, it wouldn't fit the narrative and would feel really out of place. The protagonist does feel a little bit badass for the sake of badass that you normally get with urban fantasies, but I didn't mind her in this because like I understood her. She reminds me a little bit of, is her name Juniper something from the second Her Soul to Take books, Her Soul for Revenge. She feels a bit like her. So if you like her, I think you'll like Sydney. Just a random aside. I am now 46 pages into The Beautiful Ones, so not very far in, but enough to kind of have an idea, and I'm really liking this. I really like the atmosphere presented in here, and I am hoping that I can fly through this, because I thought this would take me a couple of days, between the font being so small and then it potentially having a slow pacing that you would normally expect with this style of story. But I don't know, you know, we'll see. And then I also I've made myself a t-shirt with my cricket. It says, I don't know how well or not I can display this for you, but it says, "Wolves have no kings, and we have a wolf. And if you know, you know." And I am super proud of it, and I'm super excited to own it. So I need to get going now, but I'm having a good day. Lots of reading and a new t-shirt designed by yours truly. Can't get better. Hey vlog, checking in again because I have done quite a decent amount of reading of The Beautiful Ones. I am now on page 172, gone midnight, so quite late reading. But I am having a really good time with this one. Again, like I said, I did expect it to be slower paced than it is. I was expecting it to not really have much of a plot and it just be like mostly vibes. Because again, I have been told that this one is kind of Jane Austen, but like with magical realism. And I agree. It's like Jane Austen. The protagonist reminds me of a less abrupt version of Marianne Dashwood from Sense and Sensibility. The setting is feeling a teensy bit more Little Women than Pride and Prejudice or like any of the Jane Austen ones. So I'm really liking that. For the most part, I just think that it's a really interesting setup of a story. Like, you've definitely got a lot of different Jane Austen vibes going on in here. I'm interested in the men as well. I just think that the way that they are presented means that they are a lot more flawed and a lot more men of their time than you were getting in Jane Austen, because obviously in Jane Austen the purpose of the men was almost to show women not to settle, while the purpose of the men in here is kind of showing more like what men might have been like like even the good ones, like when they're a bit oblivious, or you know, again, if they're marrying a woman solely for her dowry or whatever. So I am excited to see how this concludes. I have 120 pages left. I'm going to continue reading a bit tonight. I don't think I'll be able to read all of that now though, because it is late. But I think I'm going to actually get into bed and read now, maybe. I'll see. But I'm going to continue until I get sleepier. I've got like a really red eye from how sleepy I am, so I probably should just go to bed. But I'm having too good of a time. And then yeah, hopefully I'll wrap it up in the morning and check in. Hey vlog, it's Monday, so it's time for me to check in again, and I have finished The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia. Listen, everyone that said to me that if because of my love of Jane Austen I will like this, thank you so much. Not only did I enjoy this book, but it's reignited my love for Silvia Moreno Garcia, because the first book of hers I read was Gods of Shade and Shadow, which I loved. 5 stars. And then after that, there was a couple of decent 4 stars, which were Daughter of Dr. Moreau and Mexican Gothic. Like, I had a good time with them. And then the most recent one that I read was Certain Dark Things, which I ended up giving 2 stars, and it really wasn't for me. So I was kind of wondering when that 5-star Silvia Moreno Garcia would come back. And here it is, 5 stars. I loved this. I loved the relationship dynamics in here, and this could very easily be a spin on Marianne's story from Sense and Sensibility. Not in the sense of like the sisterliness, because it is just focusing on our one and only protagonist Nina, but in the sense of, you know, you have someone who doesn't have someone advocating for her in the way that they potentially should be. You have someone who cares a lot about her but doesn't understand the machinations of the rest of the society that they are part of, in a way, and the history behind some of the people interacting with Nina. And we have a character who is kind of like Willoughby with a redemption arc. So if you reversed Willoughby, so if Willoughby had been in love with someone prior to Marianne and then falls in love with Marianne, instead of falling in love with Marianne and then leaving her for someone else, you kind of have a similar situation going on here. So it takes part of Marianne's story and flips it. You also have this more respectable, reputable man who everyone thinks that she should marry, but isn't very interesting to her and isn't as compatible with her. And I don't know, I really think that it was done in a really engaging way, and I love the way that we've got the telekinesis magic in there, and the way that people make her feel about the fact that she has this magic as well. Overall, I had a fantastic time with this book, and I would highly recommend you check it out. Also, thank you, Eilise, for making me read this, because I genuinely have been putting it off, and I'm so glad that I've read it. I have started The Ninth Reign, which is going to be like, this series is going to take up my whole week, and even then it's going to be a squeeze. But it's Easter and I'm off, and I'm not going to be working as hard as I potentially would be when my kids are at school. So the hope is I'll still manage to squeeze in all the reads. That's one of the things I love about Easter being in April, is that Easter in Magical Readathon means that I can get my reads in and actually have time to do so. I'm on page 30 so far of Ninth Reign, so not a huge way in. Contrary to what seems like most of the internet, I love prologues. Prologues always get me, because I feel 10 times more immersed immediately. A well done prologue is fantastic. So the prologue in here really had me excited. And now I'm on chapter 3. The chapters are really nippy as well, so it's really quick to get through, and I am hoping to make a really decent dent in this today. We start our prologue 200 years before, which is when we had the last reign of this alien species that is invading this planet. And now we are in the 200 years later, and we're following new characters. I am very excited to see how this spans and how this works, because the world is feeling very fantasy at the moment. It's not feeling very sci-fi. The sci-fi element is the alien part. So it's like alien invasion, but on a fantasy world, which is just so cool. Such a cool mashup of genres. And I am really, really excited to dive in and continue. So we're heading out now. I'm going to go buy some canvas paper, you know, that you can put through a printer, so that because my printer can print on canvas. So I'm hoping to go get some A3 printer canvas so that I can start printing things on it. I'm going to make myself some prints, and then I'm also going to potentially start using it for some projects as well. So I'm very excited about that. So we're going to go head out. My daughter is nagging me because she's bought herself a Bratz doll as well. So we need to leave the house immediately, obviously. So I will be back once I have hopefully acquired the goods, and I will be taking this with me, even though I definitely won't have time to read it. I'll still take it with me just in case. A vlog. I'm going to continue reading, but I have stopped myself for a moment because I am halfway through Ninth Reign. I'm not going to finish it tonight, but I plan to continue for a little while longer. But I needed to check in because of being already halfway through this book, and it's 500 bloody pages. Yeah, I mean, I'm not exactly halfway. I am 242 pages out of 530 something pages, but I figured, while I'm still slightly compass mentis and I'm near enough the halfway point, I mean, I could have just read a couple more chapters, but just in case I start to like wane, I figured I'd check in now. We have 3 main perspectives so far in this story. The first one is Tor, who is one of the Aborans. He was kind of there to witness the death of this tree called Yggdrasil. I have no idea how to say any of these things out loud, but it was this tree that the Aborans were living off of, and he was there to kind of witness its death alongside his sister. And he has been watching his people basically get sick from drinking human blood. So they initially began drinking human blood because it would sustain them, and then they have realized that it actually creates a sickness called the flux, which he is trying to avoid. So basically, he only drinks enough human blood to keep him completely sustained. So like, that is it, you know, literally just like baseline survival amount, while everyone else was indulging, including to the point where they were like murdering people that they saw. And they have now become what we would deem vampires. So they've gone from what was basically like elves in fantasy, what you would normally perceive as elves, like these ethereal ancient beings, to now becoming vampires, who are these ancient beings but like of horror. They are terrifying. There's been an accord between the Aborans and humans where basically they can't murder people, and they need to be kind of held responsible for that, and that they will have to kind of get consent for the blood, etc. So in the case of Tor, for example, he has 2 lovers and he has sex with them in exchange for blood, which is an interesting way of going about it, but it's what works for them. And he has left Ibora, which is the place of his people, because he thinks that, well, his people are dying. He knows they're not going to live much longer, even though they should. Since the trees died, everything's been declining, and he doesn't want to stick around to watch. He doesn't want to stay and see the fall of his people. So he has instead decided that he is going to just go see the world before he dies. You know, it could be 50 years, it could be 100 years, he doesn't know, but he knows that he can't just stay and watch his people decline. And his people hate him for that, and then obviously the humans hate the Aborans because they're afraid of them. So he's kind of not really welcome anywhere, but he just wants to see the world. Then we are also following the perspective of Vintage, or Lady Vincenza di Grazom, and she is a lady and she's in her 40s, and she has helped her family in immeasurable ways. She is very good at like helping grow these plants and these vines, etc. And she wants to get out and see the world, and everyone's kind of constantly still trying to tell her what to do, even though she's someone in her 40s. And she got to the point where she was just tired of being told what to do. So she was like, here you go, have their family business, like have everything, I'm leaving. And I love that for her. I would say that Vintage is my favorite character so far. There's just something about this like worldly academic lady who like knows her shit socially and knows her shit within her field of speciality, setting out into the world, and I'm just here for it. Like, I love her. She kind of is giving me like all of the things that I love about some of my favorite characters, but older. So think like Mildred Percy, or Eilise from Rainbow Chronicles, or Isabella Camhurst from the Lady Trent series, like any of them. Like, it's just that same vibe of like a woman who knows her shit and is done with playing by patriarchal rules, but she's older, so she's got even more fight in her, and she's done stuff and there's no one really around left to tell her what to do, and I love that, and I am having such a good time following her. And then the last one that we have is Noon, and Noon is a witch, and she kind of is very priestessy in nature. She's quite priestess coded. She's very secluded and isolated. She's not someone who is used to really, like, when she speaks out, it's always with this voice of morality as opposed to anything personal. Like, she's not going to speak out in the sense of like, I don't like this or I find this uncomfortable. It's more like, that's immoral, you shouldn't do that kind of voice. And I am looking forward to seeing like the way that her banter and the way that her interactions with both Vintage and Tor are going to bring out more feistiness and more fire within her. So I'm really enjoying that. The world in here is actually feeling quite traditionally fantasy, which again obviously is going to be all the more exciting whenever we actually start to get the rain and we actually start seeing more and more of these aliens. We get letters from Vintage to like her family as well, which is like kind of part of her background building, and I'm quite liking that because it's just like you're just seeing her interact with other people outside of just the group of people that she's with. But yeah, so you have Vintage, who is the one that's kind of put together this expedition that they're going on. So Vintage has hired Tor, and then they kind of like accidentally almost recruit Noon. Noon has like run away, and she keeps accidentally setting things on fire. She's like a pyrotechnician, but she's not very good at it, and she keeps accidentally setting things on fire. And yeah, we're just following the three of them as they go on this quest. So you have questing, you have your typical epic fantasy, and again we have a lady, a witch, and a vampire elf going on here on this quest. And I'm just really excited to continue to read this book. Like, that's the thing. I needed to check in now because I'm going to keep going, and I'd rather, like, now that I have just had the presence of mind of like, oh gosh, I'm near the halfway point, I should check in. I was like, well, I'll do it now so then I can just lose myself again. I took it out with me today when we went out. I sadly didn't actually get a chance to read anything at all while we were out, but as soon as I came home, I was like chipping away at it slightly, and then once my kids were entertained, I just sat and I just read. I read so much this afternoon. And then yeah, I came up at 11 and I have been reading nonstop since. It's gone midnight now, and I shall continue to read, and I just want to get lost in it, and I love that sensation. I love when a book that does this. To be continued, and I will check in definitely tomorrow now. Hey, BookTube. I don't actually have a huge update. I am now on page 376, so I probably would just check in properly once I am done with this now, but I'm reading in the rain. It's raining outside and it's like pitter-pattering against my window, and it's not the terrifying rain that we've been having all winter that has been making my house leak. It's the nice chill rain that just makes pretty sounds. So I am going to sit here and I'm going to make the most of it, and I am going to finish this book. I have 100 and something pages. I can't do math. I have 100 and something pages left of this. It's game read right now. That's what I'm going to do. Catch you when I'm done. Hey vlog. So I thought I'd check in because I have in fact finished the 9th Reign. I can't believe how quickly I got through this book. I mean, like, it's been the kind of book where all I want to do is read. Like, I am very good at prioritizing reading anyway. But with this one, it was more doing other things felt like an inconvenience because it was taking me away from the book. And it's been such a long time since I have had this level with an epic fantasy. So I'm happy with that. So this has got a 4.5 on Gorbile instead of a 5. And the only reason for that is that we have a section, without trying to spoil anything, but we have characters get separated by the plot. And while I understand the necessity of it within the narrative, it's just something that I don't like. It's something I don't find enjoyable. I like it when a group of people stay together. It's one of those things that kind of slightly irks me because obviously it also messes with the dynamic then as well. But everything else about this book, absolutely flawless. We start to see a lot more of Tor's sister throughout this as well, and she starts to become quite a pivotal player. And I really liked getting her perspective, not because I like reading her, but because I like seeing the conversation I think the author is trying to have. I think the author very much is trying to talk about maintaining status and the way that we will cling on to that at the peril of other things. I also really liked the conversation around the slight hint at racial superiority, in this case the Iborans, feeling that they are superior to all of the other races because of their longevity, etc., and because of their closer connection to the gods because of this tree, which I also found fascinating. So the conversations that were being had through her POV were fantastic, and I really enjoyed that we got an increment of them throughout the book. I also continue to love the main characters that we are following and the conversations that they brought forth around trauma, around saving each other, and the different ways in which they save each other, and the different kinds of people that they are, and the way that they are progressing this plot. I'm really excited for. So I'm happy to continue on, which is exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go sit and potentially watch a bit of BookTube for a while before I read. I've been doing so much reading, but I am hoping to at least start the Bitter Twins tonight. This one is another one of the longer ones. It's 612 pages, so I'm suspecting this will take me maybe 3 days to finish at the pace at which I'm going, for if I behave like a normal person. So we'll see how I go about that. Hey vlog, it's time for me to check in. I haven't been doing as much reading of the Bitter Twins as I would have liked. I am now on page 166. So I've read about 50-ish, give or take, more pages last night, and I have read 100-ish, maybe a bit more today. So not the best, but I have been doing most of my reading on my phone today. Today has been very much a scrolling kind of day. I've been feeling quite social, but my version of social is just interacting with people online and talking about books. So I've been watching a load of my friends' videos. I have just been wanting to catch up on their stuff, and I have been just taking the time to just not read and just watch, which I don't do very often. I should do more. But you know, I've been watching my friend Rachel, my friend Chris, my friend Matt. I'll leave them all linked down below. And then I've also just been watching like some bigger booktubers. I've talked about this before with some friends, where there is definitely the difference to me between watching my friends' booktube videos and then watching booktube videos from just like bigger content creators that I don't really engage with as much. It's not really about the size, it's more to do with like whether or not they are someone that I chat to in my personal life. People like Chris or Rachel or Mare, who I consider friends, and they're people that I want to chat to. They're people who I'll go out of my way to make sure I'm really taking in their video and actually engaging with what they're saying and commenting and trying to spur on the conversation that I believe is the entire point of making a booktube video. While with other content creators that have gajillions of comments that I know they're not going to respond, like Becca from Becca and the Books, or Gavin from How to Train Your Gavin, or Jade from JD Ray Reads. It's not that I like their content any less, it's that I'm just watching it for fun. I'm not really going out of my way to like compile comments to chat to them. So I kind of approach those differently. So when my brain is goo, I will go watch kind of someone who I don't really need to engage with, and then when I'm in a social mood, I'll make sure I'm commenting and really taking in the video. All this to say that when I'm doing that, I don't read. So I can have like Becca and the Books or Jade from JD Ray Reads vlogs on in the background while I'm reading, and that is just comforting to me. But with reading, I can't really do that when it's a video that I'm genuinely wanting to interact with. So I got less reading done last night, but I did still get some done. So again, 166, it's not terrible. I would like to be further along than I am, but I've still got all night tonight to do so. But as I said, I have been in a little bit of a doom scrolling mood today as well, and I've been kind of chatting on Discord and Instagram and stuff with friends and things. So I have just been doing a lot of like flicking to my Kindle app and back whenever I feel a bit like, oh, I just need to be kind of chilling on my phone today. That's what I do. It's another way of like making sure that I'm still managing my time in a way that isn't just spending literal hours scrolling on my phone. So I'll just flick Kindle app, Instagram, Kindle app, Discord, and kind of do it like that, and that's how I manage my time. So that means that I needed a Kindle book. Now, should I have picked the one from my jar pick for the month? Probably. Is that what I did? No, that's not what I did. I picked up A Sleight of Shadows by Kat Howard, which is the second book in the Unseen World series. I bought it and I read it. I'm reading it and I've picked it up. I don't do that very often. I am very much like a TBR kind of person. While I do genuinely believe that The Magicians can be read as a standalone, so like no like shade to Eilise for picking a book that's part of a series and making me only read one, it reads fine as a standalone. But I needed an ebook, and I was like, well, I could bash out a couple series here, so that's what I'm doing. I'm bashing out a couple of series here, and I am fine with that. And I'm actually looking forward to finishing out this series, because like I said, I had a lot of the rating of book one almost slightly contingent on book two, because it depends on what book two decides to tackle thematically, whether or not I find the ending of book one satisfying, because it is a satisfying conclusion, but with the caveat that there are a lot of things that aren't tackled. So it's interesting to me that in the sequel what things we are tackling, and I'm really enjoying that. So I am excited to continue on. Now, if I don't finish Light of Shadows this week, even this month, it's no big deal. It's not part of my TBR. I just needed a day where I could just stare at my phone for a prolonged period of time. And that's exactly what I've been doing. So tonight's plan is I'm hoping to bash out a decent chunk of the Bitter Twins. I'd like to maybe get halfway, just because I am really enjoying where this is going, and I just really enjoy the writing in this series. It's really captivating, and it's really digestible and easy to get through, even though it's got so many intricacies when it comes to the world building, when it comes to the creatures and all of the other things that you'll find in this world. I genuinely do think that it is done in a way that is still super approachable and super digestible. So I'm very excited to continue. I just, like I said, I needed to stare at my phone. So that's how I think I get a lot of my reading done. Like, I was trying really hard last week to do my vlog where I'm talking about how I read so much in a week, but my biggest trick is literally just maximizing on time. It's literally just allowing myself to do things, but making sure I incorporate reading where possible. So like, if I am cooking or cleaning, I'll chuck an audiobook on. My audiobook for this month is Lady Macbeth. It's the one that I pulled out of my TBR jar. That's my audiobook, and it will take me the whole month to read it, like, because it's just a chapter here or there. There will be multiple days in a row where I won't read it, and that's fine. And then I have a physical book for when I need to concentrate. I'm just going to park myself here, and all I'm going to do is read. That's what this is for. And I love those vibes. I'll sit here and I'll have my lamp on and candles and just be sat here in my reading chair and literally just park myself with a book. And that's what the physical books are for. And then if it's just like I fancy doom scrolling, but I don't want to spend hours doom scrolling, I'll scroll for a couple minutes. I'll read on the Kindle app. Scroll for a couple minutes, read on the Kindle app, and that works for me. I don't know how I've made it work, but it works. I actually only started really implementing that at the beginning of this year. I kept wanting to go on Discord to chat to all my friends, and I didn't want to give that up. I didn't want to just suddenly be like, oh, sorry, I can't talk to you. I need to go read for reasons. But also I didn't want to give up reading time. Insert phone reading time. And that's exactly how I go about it now, and it's working. So I'm hoping that I will just have a decent amount of time to just sit and blast through a chunk of this later. As I said, I'm having a great time with it and I'm really enjoying it, so I am excited to get back to it. It's not that I'm not captivated by it. And then yeah, I'm enjoying Sight of Shadows. I'm glad that I picked it up. I'm not gonna lie, it's not on the TBR. I'm adding another book to the TBR. I have no idea if I can make this work for a magical readathon prompt, but I am reading it anyway. And I'll figure it out later, I guess. But yeah, so that's where I'm at, and I will, I guess, check back in tonight when I have read some of the bits of it. Hey vlog, so I am about to head out. We're heading out for the day. My kids are going to the Airport Museum, Aeronautics Museum, and me and my niece are going to go shopping. So I figured that I would nip in before we leave. Last night I did do some reading of the Bitter Twins. I didn't read as much as I'd like yesterday because I wanted to get halfway, but I am on page 272, so it does mean that I read like 110 pages last night. So it's just because it's such a big book, you know, it's like 110 pages in one night is a lot. I appreciate that. It's just that I think because I got through Ninth Reign so quickly, and I read like half a book a day, I think I kind of put those expectations on myself for this one as well. So that means that I've got like 340 pages left. So the chances of finishing it today are quite slim, especially since I'm going out. So one of my like reading sections is not going to be there. I'm going to read a little bit before I go. I don't know how much I will read, but I'd like to get to page 300 before I leave, and then I will
potentially only be able to read again like another 100-ish pages tonight when we get back. So I'm missing out on like one of my bigger chunks of time, but that's okay. So hopefully I will check back in later and actually still be able to get a decent ways through. I am liking this one so much. I feel like I haven't really said very much because obviously it's a sequel, but the way that the character dynamics shifted towards the end of book one that kind of slightly frustrated me is now working in its favor. So I kind of need to be a bit more forgiving of book one because it was worth it for the shifts that we've got here. We've also had like a slight increment in not necessarily POVs, but like the secondary characters within those POVs have begun to get a bit more agency, to become a bit more prominent and a bit more meaningful, which I'm really liking. Like we really did focus on like our three main characters and then a couple of side characters, and that is expanding. And the fact that we're getting more of Hest and Hest's perspective as well is also fascinating, and I'm really excited to kind of see where that POV is going to lead and which way they're going to fall. I'm very excited to see all of these things. Yeah, hopefully I'll get a little bit more reading done now and then I'll check in later. But I will go and I will get some B-roll and I'll see you later.
Vlog. So it's the Easter bank holiday. It's Friday, so I feel like I probably am not going to be checking in as much this weekend, but I'm still going to have quite a bit of time for reading. But obviously I want to be around my kids and they are not going to be on camera, so I don't know really how I'm going to navigate this one. But I did manage to get in the end to page 380 yesterday, so I have like 200 and something pages to read today, which is exactly what I am going to go do. But I did manage to finish Flight of Shadows by Kat Howard, and I really did like that one. I really did think that it carried its themes through. Now this isn't a series that I feel very emotionally about. This isn't a series that I think is purposefully for you to be really invested. Like, you're invested in the characters but not invested emotionally in the characters. Like, you're interested in them, you're understanding where they're coming from, you can perceive them as people. They're just not ones that I feel strongly about on an emotional level. I've given this one 4 stars, but for different reasons to why I gave book 1 4 stars. For me, with book 1, it got 4 stars because even though most of it was really impeccable, a lot of how I felt about it was contingent on that in book 2 there would be questions answered, and the falling action and the way that we deal with the repercussions of book 1 actually made sense, because I don't like books that are so thematically driven to have a neat ending without there being some kind of falling action and tackling of the consequences, which it has, book 2 has. So that is great and it's well fulfilled. For me, with book 2, I just felt like my connection to the characters was moving further and further away, because I was just only really in it for the falling action, for understanding how we're going to tackle the ramifications of book 1. So while it's not necessarily a bad thing, it does just mean that then it's not got that 5-star feeling of like, I absolutely love this, because for the most part emotionally I felt like they were kind of like set aside in exchange for the other things, which is fine. I'm big on themes, so it's still being a 4-star makes sense for me, but obviously for it to be like new favorite material, I do need a bit more soul in there. So yeah, the hope is that I will get to finishing the Bitter Twins today. Got plenty of day left, and then tonight, if I do manage to do that, I will hopefully start Poison Song and then read that throughout the weekend. So it is the magical all-nighter tomorrow, and I don't actually have any plans tomorrow, so I have plans today because it's Good Friday and we're doing like a mini Easter. My parents buy my kids Easter eggs, and then we buy my kids Easter eggs, and then they get all their Easter eggs the day before they go back to school, because they go back to school on Easter Monday, because Easter Monday is not a thing here in Spain. So it means that then they're going to have like 2 whole Easter eggs on the last day before school, and that just always seems a bit ridiculous to me. So we do an Easter egg hunt on Good Friday and then one on Easter Sunday. So they've got Good Friday and then Saturday, because like we only get like the little ones because my kids are small, so we only get the little ones, and they've got like 2 days where they can eat it, and then they get the ones they get on Sunday, and that can like last them however long. We don't really have plans tomorrow. Like I said, I'm going to be around my kids most of the day, so I'm not going to be getting much b-roll or anything, but I am going to have plenty of time to read. So yeah, the idea is that I would finish this today, maybe just about start Poison Song, and then move from there. So we'll see how I go about it, but I am excited to finish this one up. I have been really enjoying this one. I think that this one, weirdly enough, it's got almost middle book syndrome, but in a good way. I know that sounds weird because like the whole point of middle book syndrome is it's a bad. For me with this one, it's not a bad thing, because like this one is amping things up from book 1, setting up things for book 3, but it's done in a way that makes sense, that keeps you invested, that I think is really well handled. So I'm still having a fantastic time with it regardless. So I am hoping to continue that energy through to the end, and we'll see how I feel about it in the end and what rating I end up giving it, and then how I feel about book 3. So yeah, that's the plan. I'm going to go start reading, stop talking, and I'll catch you later. Hey vlog, so it's been a hot minute, but I did manage to finish the Bitter Twins yesterday. I just didn't check in. My anxiety has been really bad. I definitely have something hormonal going on that's just not being very kind to me. So I just chilled last night. I didn't read anything last night, so I finished this yesterday afternoon. 5 stars. I loved this one. I really love how the characters are really coming into their own as individuals as well as a collective, and then the way that in itself is feeding into the world. I feel like Noon's development is probably one of the most exciting and really well crafted storylines throughout this series so far. I can't wait to see what she does with this. I feel like it's just something that feels like it's been a long time coming, and I love that when that happens, when you feel like you've known characters for so much longer than you have, just because of watching them grow. Vintage is still my favorite character. I absolutely love Vintage so much, and the fact that we get like a reveal of a bit more of her life in here, and someone who is important to her, and watching her relate to this person, but there's also like an element of sadness to it that obviously I can't talk about, but there's this kind of bittersweetness about that as well, and I absolutely loved that element so much. It felt really emotional to me, so I absolutely loved this one. So glad that I've read it. Which leans into the fact that I am also now a little ways into Poison Song. So I've joined E from Bookhurst over on her sprint. I'm watching her magical all-nighter sprint, which has just started the actual reading section, so I thought I'd check in. But I am on page 84 of the Poison Song, and we've already had something happen in the first, I want to say 50 pages, maybe less, maybe the first 20 pages of this book, that was just so badass, and I can't wait to see the ramifications of, and I'm so excited with this book, and I don't want this book to finish, but at the same time I don't want to put it down, and it's really conflicting. I've also picked up an ebook just so that I've got one for on the go if I need one, that I suspect I'll be reading throughout the month. Next week's vlog, spoiler alert, next week's vlog is my spinner wheel, so if I don't get an ebook come up on the spinner wheel, I will continue with this one. And if I do get one come up on the spinner wheel, then I'll just pause this one for a bit. It's a romance, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, my plan is to read this, get about halfway through this today, because all I'm planning on doing today is actually plonking myself here, watching G and reading. So I'm hoping that I'll have a great time, and that will be the cure my anxiety needs. So hopefully I'll be able to check in tonight with a halfway marker check-in, and then tomorrow be done with this vlog and with this book. We'll see how I feel about the series at the end. Hey vlog, so I haven't got very long until sprints start back up, so I thought I would quickly check in because I am halfway through Poison Song. I am slowly but surely trying to scoop my mental health up off of the floor. This book, those sprints are doing that for me, because props to G for making me get halfway through a book in a day, because I am just pretending that I am in ALD instead of in the real world. But yeah, fixing myself with a traumatic book, as you do. So obviously it's the third book in the series, so how much can I actually talk about? But I am absolutely loving, I mean, the start of this book set the tone, like it really did, because it already just comes in actions that you have been wanting to see for a while, and then shit hits the fan and things get difficult and worse, and you're discovering so many more things. Like, this isn't a book of just wrapping stuff up. This is still introducing things, but in a way that makes sense, in a way that there are, you know, that there are still reveals to come, and that you have so much more still to learn, while at the same time that certain things are being drawn towards what is clearly going to be their final battle. You know, it's that final push towards the end for certain things, and I am so excited to see how this concludes, because the way that this story has been going, it's got such a good balance of action and world building and plot and all these things that are driving forward, and then just character moments that don't cease. It's not like we introduce you to these characters and you get to know them in book one, and then from here on out, since you already know them, we're just gonna, you know, now get on with the plot and the action. It's not done that, and it's fantastic, and I'm here for it. So I am very, very excited to see how the last half of this goes. As I have said, I do have other books on the go. I have an audiobook that I'm just kind of slow tipping away at, and I have an ebook just for the sake of having an ebook, especially because potentially Monday I'm going to be out for a decent chunk of time, and it'll depend on what comes up in my spinner whether or not I end up being able to read it or not, whether or not I need an ebook. So I am kind of chipping away at that a little bit as well, but it's not really making any issue with my reading pace, because again, like throughout all of these sprints, I've just been reading this one. So I am hoping to have this finished. I mean, obviously I've still got at least one more sprint, I think, after, so I will still continue to read this. Obviously I'm not going to finish it tonight because it is already like 11:30 and I still have half a book to go, but I am definitely anticipating finishing this tomorrow, and I will finish this vlog when I finish the book, as opposed to just like because it's Sunday. So as soon as this is done, I will finish up. So one more clip to go, and then I'm done. Hey vlog, it's Sunday night. It's actually the early hours of Monday, so it's time for me to check in and wrap up this vlog. I have never read this much in this period of time, I don't think. I have read 7 books in just under 11 days, which is just ridiculous to me. Absolutely insane. So we're gonna go through and wrap up. First of all, I'm going to wrap up that I have finished Poison Song, and I gave this 5 stars. I loved it. It was amazing. I cried at the end. Thanks, Eilise, making me cry. I felt the themes throughout here, the way they amp up the discussions around, like, even the villain. Like, I've got to sidetrack here for a second to talk about villain, because one of the things I truly appreciate about this book is when you have a villain that has a moral compass and is actively choosing to ignore that moral compass for gain in some way, shape, or form. I love that theme. I love the way that that was discussed, and especially in this one, the way you can see that you are reaping destruction, but you are so committed to what you want out of it. You can no longer go back. You feel like you can't turn back the clock, and you just keep going. Incredible. But like so many other smaller themes here around society, around complacency, around hierarchies, mistreatment of people, institutions, class divides, so many things that are discussed in here. We've got a huge amount of characters at this point that we care about. We have queer romance. We had another romance in here as well that I felt so much, and I loved it. I loved it so much, and I am so glad that Eilise finally made me read this series, because it was just incredible. and I understand the hype now. I really do. So let's wrap up the vlog. I'll start with the digital ones. So I did read both An Unkindness of Magicians and A Sleight of Shadows by Kat Howard, forming the Unseen World duology. This series is one that I didn't know if I would like. I'm not a huge urban fantasy girly, and also I'm really not a New York City reader. I've been saying this a lot lately, but I love the way that we discussed institutions, class divides, privilege, and what we are willing to sacrifice, and who the people of privilege are willing to throw under the bus. So many themes throughout, and while the first book was very much contingent on the second book for my enjoyment, because there were things, we got to a conclusion, but I really felt like thematically we needed to go past the conclusion that we got, which I did very satisfyingly get in book 2. In book 2, I did feel a larger disconnect from the characters than I had in book 1, because it is not as emotionally driven and it is more thematically driven, and I do like a balance. So they both got 4 stars. They were fantastic conversation starters. They were great books to have discussions about, and I would definitely read more from this author. The next one that I have on here is I read Redemption in Indigo by Karen Lord. This one is an absolute standout for me, just because I was shocked. Like, obviously I've heard of Karen Lord and it sounded like it was going to be really interesting, but I was shocked actually by how invested in this I got. It's so short for me to get this invested in it. It was so much fun, and I definitely would read more by this author, especially because I believe that she has like a series out. I think it's a trilogy of sci-fi books, and you know, like, if I liked this already, some world building across 3 books, I think is going to be absolutely amazing. I think a huge win for me in this vlog was The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This one made me fall back in love with Silvia Moreno Garcia. While I was feeling like I was drifting away from her, you know, we went from 5 stars to 4 stars to 3 stars. I loved this. This was everything I wanted it to be. It was Jane Austen level Regency, but with some fantasy thrown in, some magical realism thrown in. I love the conversations that were had in this story. I love the setting. I love the character work that was put in here, and I am so glad that Eilise has made me fall back in love with this author. And obviously the last thing that I have on here is the entirety of the Winnowing Flame trilogy by Jen Williams, and I loved this series. We have a 4-star, 5-star, 5-star from me. Just amazing the way it builds up, the way you get to know your characters. Vintage is definitely going to be one of my all-time new favorite characters. She fits the archetype of character that I love so well, while still feeling like a complete individual, unique character. I love that so much. I love when characters fall into a category of character that I like, but still are incredibly distinctive in my brain, and that is always just a delight. And I love vintage so much. But just the relationships, the themes, the world building is immense. It's incredible. It's impeccable. It's perfect. The way that we have this group of women at the end, and like the way it's so female centric, and I loved it so much. So much. So there you have it. Those are all my reads for this vlog. Let me know your thoughts on any of these books, or if you've read them, or if based on my liking of these books there are other books that you think I might like. That is all from me for today, so thank you ever so much for watching, and I will hopefully catch you in another one soon. Bye.